I'm on the weapons. I have them in all different colors. I'm on the Amazon. Sorry.
So welcome everybody to Freedom, Freeing the Domes Friday. And today we're doing this series in April on bending. We did last week on air bending. Today is water bending. Next Friday we'll be going up the ladder, fire, and then air. And
Earth last week.
Oh, we did earth. Yes. Excuse me. So earth, water, fire, air. And ultimately, all of this is held in the ether. And so the fifth element is ether. And so as we balance each of these water bending skills and balance each of our energy centers, we become also able to do all of the bending, and we become more full in our soul packet. We become more whole, more grounded, more in-souled, meaning you're running the soul that you are all the way through your vessel, all the way through your avatar, out your feet, out your central channel. You're not hovering. Most of the last couple years, 10, 20 years, since early 2000s, I was in my body, but I was hovering off the earth. And we talked about that last week. And if it feels appropriate, I'll talk about it more. But what I meant to say, as far as half in, half out, some people as a child, they didn't feel comfortable being in their surroundings. So they didn't actually get all the way down into their physical body. They were hovering in that way, meaning the soul was like, up here, but yet they weren't all the way down in the physical form. Of course they are, but it wasn't comfortable. And so at a level they are hovering. Did any of you felt like you hovered? Maybe you wasn't comfortable in your household or something growing up that you didn't fully come all the way in?
Yes.
Yes. A couple. So
I was upset that I was a girl. I wanted to be a boy.
Okay. So, there's different.
A boy before.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, you chose to come into a life lesson, a family lesson that would have made it uncomfortable sometimes to master those skills and master those ways of your family. And a lot of times before those lifetimes, if we're looking at time, you might have actually had the opposite, where you were actually, that version of the family member who made it uncomfortable for you this lifetime. You were that same trait or had that kind of same trait another lifetime. And so you're balancing out these polarities, almost like I call them checkpoints. Reasons you come here is to kind of master and become able to forgive, because you can see that, wow, I must have done that another timeline. If you dial in and do your Akashic work, something happened this timeline that feels really inappropriate. You can ask your consciousness, did I ever do this? Even if it was not past, it's future or interdimensional. In another timeline, you can ask, did I ever do this? But also, where am I still doing this at 1% in this lifetime? Is another thing that also we look at is, if all is self and I'm like literally showing myself with biofeedback in the hologram of the aura, and I'm showing myself things that I don't like, then I still must be a resonant match with that, because I am doing it or I haven't forgiven it from another time, another space. And as we awaken to who we really are as a bigger being beyond just the individual soul, but as, spirit at large, source, God consciousness, Goddess consciousness, as you go up your central channel and realize, wow, I'm all of this. I'm everything. I'm everyone. You can then easily see yourself and have compassion. It's easier to forgive when you go, oh yeah, I kind of do that, or I did that in some other time. Even this lifetime, earlier on, you could have really had a strong way about yourself that you shifted, but yet it's still trailing itself in cycles and repeat patterns around you. And sometimes those repeat patterns around you happen, even if you've cleared it, you really are neutral, you know how to truly be, let's say really good with your word, and your, you don't gossip, you don't, the throat energy center is really balanced in itself. You're able to speak when you know to speak and listen when you're supposed to listen, but yet you weren't that way. I couldn't speak. I stuttered up until my 20s. And So it was like unheard of to, I would never think I'd be doing the things I do now, but that early on patterning of not being able to communicate and speak, I could still have that trail to today. Let's say if I'm filming a video and I've never filmed a video, or doing some kind of extra factor I add into, now I've balanced it, but yet I bring back something into this now that I'm not balanced yet in, as well as it cycles in time. Let's say at my birthday when I was 10 years old, I really had trouble speaking about something that was really on my heart. Well, maybe I get to this year's birthday, and because it's a birthday marker, something about that factor of, when it happened can also kind of rear its head, and you're like, I've balanced this. Like, what is going on? Why can't I speak on my birthday? And you ask your consciousness, you're like, oh, it's from when I was 10 years old and I had that thing happen and I couldn't communicate. So all of this is to say about feeling your ability to get back in your body and master these energy centers. And when we're looking at water bending specifically, we're looking mainly, if we're looking at the ladder of our energy centers, we're looking at the second energy center. And so the second energy center, we see them, if we call them chakras, wheel of light, if we come out of that, teaching and just say an energy center, a vortex of energy that's spiraling out and spiraling into your back, that cone shape or that hourglass shape of out the front into the back, those energies are coming through in a way of, hopefully balanced. And wow, my screen's like doing stars and lights and fireworks. That's something I did just really made that happen. Okay, so when we're looking at that second energy center, we're looking to be balanced with water and balance with our emotions. So we're going to look at emotions. We're going to look at inner child. Sometimes when you're talking to consciousness, inner child won't speak, but you have to say wounded child. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yes, wounded child. So maybe you're like using a pendulum or using the body sway muscle testing and you're finding out like, I want a water bend. We'll talk more about that, but I want to be able to be more balanced in my second energy center. Is there something I need to know about from my inner child? And like, you just sit there, or the pendulum just does a maybe. Then if you say, was it the wounded child consciousness? Yes. Oh, okay. And then that will sometimes give you a very large packet of information of things that are being stored related to yourself. This is all you, all consciousness can speak as general consciousness, but sometimes that wounded child stored so much plasma, so much information in the light packet that is keeping this out of balance, that is really what wants to speak to you, that wounded child consciousness. So we're looking to, like I was saying, three things: emotions, child, and then animal, basic instincts. A lot of time your animal self will show up into this second energy center for stability, learning how to stabilize this space of moving energy, your soul's light through all these energy centers in a balanced way, the most balanced way that we can move the energy through our avatar would be this beautiful torus that is always moving this way. Every cell, every single thing is moving this toroidal pattern in this existence, that this plane that we're working on. But again, is it coming all the way through? And is it coming out of every vortex, all the energy centers, all your mini energy centers called your acupuncture points? Those are all little minor chakras or minor energy centers. How is it moving through? And you'll feel it. Sometimes it's digestive things that you come over you and you're like, I just don't feel right. I got a gut feeling about this, or I feel off. My gut feels off. Again, that's could be your first energy center, but a lot of times it is working with that second and third energy center. So emotions, child, and animal self. So the animal self being, think about the animals, they're number one, they're very loving and they're very in harmony with the unity grid that nature is working with. It's very, just a natural movement of wholeness. However, they have basic instincts, primitive instincts, just as we do in our primitive limbic brain, that when we feel, fear of our life, or, we need to survive. You might find that you in your earlier childhood possibly, or your 20s as becoming adult or something, that you felt like you went primitive, like you had to be on alert. Maybe it was your first time having an apartment and you just like, weren't used to it because you had your home at your parents' house. Usually my examples are real, by the way. So there's something about that you went down into that basic primitive instincts, and maybe it was more fear dominant. And you feel like when you're looking at your Akash asking, how can I balance this second energy center? Is it, my general consciousness? Can you tell me? No. You go through those type of questions. Is it child? No. Is it an animal self? Yes. A panther. Oh, okay. Panther self, what do you want to tell me about? And then maybe that apartment scene comes up into your awareness that you were worried one night when the doorbell rang or something like that. Something at the door for somebody. So again, bringing it back to water bending, I'm kind of going to go wide, then I'm going to keep coming back in. When we have this stability of those three emotions, inner child, wounded consciousness, not going to claim the wounded child. I did that earlier today. I'm not the wounded child, but the wounded child consciousness. And then animal self, which you can relate to all animals. It doesn't just have to be a panther. You may sometimes all of a sudden slug. You're like getting slug talking to you, telling you to slow down. So as you're working with that type of consciousness and you're learning how to stabilize this energy center, when do you typically need to know when to stabilize that? Well, you know it when your emotions get stirred. You know it when you get triggered. You know it when all of a sudden, we're going to talk deeper about this, it gets really stormy out. When you can, you feel that emotion coming on and you don't even know what it is. Like yesterday, I had very strong sensations of crying. And when I tapped in, ultimately it's all as self, but because we work together as a team, when we come together in these types of groups and we start to not only, work with my consciousness, but I get to also feel you all's consciousness and what you're going through. I could feel Heather and her child, going off to be a man, and not that he's not already, but to go on to his next venture, and I could feel these tears just coming over me. And so rather than resisting, I can get the information. I don't have to have the information, but rather than resisting, I could just go with that emotion in a healthy container, right? And not, if someone wants to listen to me, I could give it to them. But ultimately, I typically go, if I'm doing a session with somebody, like a therapist, they're willing to hold it. But otherwise, I go to nature. I happened to be laying on the Therify yesterday when I was able to go into the emotion. But you go into some container where you can just process that emotion, and that will get things rebalanced pretty quickly. I always say, like, if you got a tear or crying in you, like, let it go, like, bring it. Because those tears are going to unwind the wound off of the DNA. It literally is the quickest healing you can have for yourself by moving that emotion. So if you got emotion, like, deal with it. Otherwise, if you don't, what then happens is physical body pain sets in. And so underneath all physical body pain is, trapped emotions. That's what gets there. So again, we're working from these high frequencies down our central channel to the low, just like we go, air is fast, fire's pretty fast, water's a little slower, and earth is really slow. It's slowing down the frequency. And so things happen way up here in the mental plane, emotional come down and into the physical. So any questions so far?
I was just gonna say about the crying, like you think of the lungs too, like the grief and sadness that can be held, and it's like when you cry, it's just such a release, and it like clears all that energy up and just takes it out. So
Pretty fast, yeah.
yeah.
For sure. And we're sectioning off these elements and bending talk, but again, all of it works together, and you can see just how much it works together when we talk about storms in a minute.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in meditation, when I connect with spirit or my higher self, it's always I tear up. I tear, and it's every time, and I don't know why. And it's not sadness, but it's just automatic. It's almost like a signal that I'm in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
to you?
And it feels like you're moving through some density and it's speeding up that and then making it a tear to release. It's almost like you get tapped in and then it starts pushing things out for you.
Yeah.
But also I feel like this sweetness, like you know that you're in it, like there's this depth of
For sure.
devotion. like, oh man. Yeah, I just did it. I went, oh man, I started tearing.
It makes sense to you.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Hmm. For sure.
It's just every time.
You're
You
in.
switch.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, I've experienced a little bit of that, like a version of that. And for me, a lot of times it's recognizing a love that exists that we don't always experience in this physical plane.
Yes.
So it's almost like oh gosh, this actually,
That devotion.
this is
Yeah.
here, right? This exists,
I
and
agree.
I love, and I am loved, and sometimes that's just emotionally overwhelming.
In a good way.
Right.
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
totally nailed it. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so when we think of waterbending, let's just go around your name and what you think of waterbending.
My name's Heather. I think water bending, after your explanation,
Well, there's a lot more.
has to do with the reflection of emotion and the element of water. Like they're very intrinsically entwined, and so by manipulating, utilizing either our emotion or the physical element of water, we can affect the other.
Yeah. Cool.
It's the belt, and I think well, for one, like the studies where you can like put a word on your water bottle, or you can talk to it, and that you can change the
Mm-hmm.
molecular structure, I guess,
Mhm.
with the intention that you put. That's all for now.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. That's great.
Teresa. I don't know if you want to call it water bending, but and going in line with you with reflection, also the ripple effect. That what we put out, it has a ripple effect
Mm.
of going out there to others.
Yeah.
And stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you consider. water
Absolutely. This is all connected for sure. You do know. Mhm.
I'm thinking of the water in me
Yes.
and the creation
Mm.
that's available.
Yeah.
Melisandre. It makes me think of how malleable in shape it can be, but if you push it out of one side, it's gonna spill somewhere else. You can't
Mm.
control it. You can't erase any of it.
Mm.
I guess like energy.
Yeah. Thank you. And you can say or skip. It's all you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Francesca. I mean, to me, water, I was thinking about just emotions being at the base of everything, thoughts, behaviors. And it's not so much about mastering it, but literally kind of going with it. If
Mm.
it's like an ocean wave, go with the ocean wave. If it's a still pond, go with the pond.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, currently, I'm in a pretty challenging space, but I'm finally getting beyond it. And it's incredible just having the switch of thinking about it in a sense of like, I'm in the middle of the wave. I'm not at the end of the wave or at the beginning. What do I need to do? And just
Mm.
kind of stay on it.
Good.
And it made me think of the eclipse when the water was so still. Like I went out to the beach and it was covered partially here, and the water was so still. The birds were quiet, and it was like, wow. Just like, I don't know, such an interesting space.
Yeah. I love that, going with it. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Those are all things I wanted to share. So I'm really happy that you guys are tapped in. And so first is speaking to the water that we're made of, the body, the avatar, and that even the soul at all levels, we're this light and it's vibrating at different frequencies. So as it's, we easily think about this with the ice cube, then the ice cube's being melted to water, then it's going to vapor, etc. And so those different stages of water. It's the same thing with the stages of ether. And as it slows down, it creates these different elementals. So when we are looking at the body of water that's made of this avatar, you'll hear people say 70%, you'll hear people say 90%, but ultimately it's a large amount of water. And so since all of this is essentially this air that we're around us, this ether is also water. It's just at a higher frequency. So you think about, we're all connected. We're all water. There's big bodies of water. There's this water in the air, even if you just want to look at it that way. So it's a give and take and a connection between all of us that we're going to feel like the, bigger, greater spirit that we are, the bigger, greater body of water we are, and we're going to feel each other. So that's why sometimes you're going to check in, like, am I feeling me? Or, am I feeling someone else's water, someone else's emotion? And again, ultimately all is self. So there's something for you in it because there's a resonant match, meaning whether we're looking at light particles or we're looking at water today, there's going to be a certain resonant match frequency that draws that water towards each other of like match. And so roll with it, that's that, even though you don't see that as a mastery, I feel like that's like the ultimate mastery is like, hey, let me go. Let me just roll with this. Let me, move with the tide, move with the water. And so that brings us also to, you think about your womb space of being in your mother's womb, right? We came from the water. We came through that uterus the placenta was holding water. So that's something to, also play with in your mastery, is go back to being in the womb, take yourself there and realize that it was dark in there, was it not? And you didn't know what was outside of there, maybe. Well, it's the same thing in this bigger body of water. We're in a big womb right now. Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
And where are we going? So we're in a womb right now. We used to call this room the womb room. But this whole experience is we're in a mother, and we don't know where we're going in the next transition. So those are two exercises to play with yourself in the mastery of this water element. Okay, another exercise of mastering water, Sibel brought it up, which is, placing positive message on water and then drinking that water. We have Yamoto, the Japanese gentleman, he's no longer in body anymore, but he's got great books out there and things like that. You can see how he studied putting all different types of words on water vessels and then seeing the crystal structure, the six-sided hexagon structure that was actually created from the different words put on water. So again, we are water and we are drinking this water. So it's a great practice. Even I've been doing it more consciously lately before I drink, really supercharging it up. Like, I love you so much. You're so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And like seeing it like blue plasma. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to drink you. And that's me at my front sink now. And then I drink it and you can tell the difference. And you're like, whoa, why don't I do this more often? So, charging your water with your hands, with your intention, with putting a word on it. And then on that, Yamoto's studies, he also had people, yelling at the water and then yelling at or saying nice things to the water. And it was totally different structures, geometry or chemistry, looking at a microscope, it looked like blobs, the water that was yelled at. in the same studies he did the rice, he had the children or the people, yell at the rice and say nice things to the rice. And the rice that was yelled at, turned mold right away. And the other rice lasted like a month, like fresh. So it's, super powerful for our water bending skills to work with our water that we're drinking. You can program your shower, you can say eternally, like my shower is like my total space station, teleportation station. And, I program the walls, I touch the walls and talk to them. And I've also got a imploder from Dan Winter's therify.net that is spinning the water at 1.618, just like the Therify, and it creates bliss water. And so that water, when it's spinning at the appropriate rate and frequency and spiral, it's more available to our vessel, as well as that leads me to also talk about the pipes. Most pipes are running at right angles, throughout to your house. And so you think about the way it's running through, you might want to talk to your pipes and like imagine them differently. Imagine they're all spinning at 1.618, and so on. It's not just that number, it goes on. So the water holds memory, so if it's going through these pipes and where it's coming from, it went to the water plant, it got, cleared, maybe some stuff put in it, ultimately we're going to see it as stacked up light particles, and we're going to program that it's all love. But ultimately, remembering that it's got memory, so you might tell your water and, your pipes that it clears all the water and makes it love and makes you think about love, etc. Because it's holding memory. It holds what we say to it. The other studies that a woman just got on the other day on Fractal U 2 Sundays ago, and she even showed how she did studies on the water, freezing the water, and like putting a picture of like a rose right here, and then setting the water just for not long. I can't remember exactly how long, but she'd stick it on there and then stick it in the freezer. And then if you take it out and the picture of the rose is sitting there, and it's thousands of slides that she shows that it's holding memory. So we've got so many different ways of seeing how powerful we are as water. So like telling your water, telling your water, I love you, you're so beautiful. And the natural perfected state of water is that hexagon, that 6-sided. And so we really, just understanding those types of science pieces, you don't need to understand it, but if you add that in, you're going to, again, master this water, which, go
Did you
ahead.
say water is a hexagon? A molecule?
Yes, 6-sided. Yeah.
So what is that at its base
Yeah, I want to show
of
you.
what?
3-dimensional.
A 3-dimensional
Yes.
molecule of water.
So if you,
H2O.
so if you look at, just want to show you the water crystals. When you're looking at them and you see how different, words and etc. are going to change the way they look, they're all still going to have that 6 side, but they're going to be like more ornate, more elaborate. And of course, because it doesn't want me to look at it right now.
Okay.
But when we're done, I want to show you some. Yes. And then when you are not nice to it, or when it is going through those right angles, you could imagine what it's doing to the water. It's taking it out of its normal structure. And we've also got, water structuring the Mayu out here that's spinning it and also restructuring it. So from the pipes that were going, you put it in like a little restructuring device. You're also going to benefit, and then you talk to it. Right, all these different things we can do.
I smile at it when it swirls.
Yeah.
Hello there.
Hello. I even heard a guy recently say that you could stick it in a blender. I asked Dan Winter about that on that call, and he said, well, he actually suggested the Mayu, but he said you'd have to have the right blades. Sometimes it's not going to be spinning it the right way. Yeah, but.
And the blender's so like aggressive.
Right.
Agitated.
Right.
Like, Yeah, I imagine the water was like that.
It's kind of like going to your fruit and vegetables when you're trying before you drink
Oh,
it.
right. That's why I'm sure there's some kind of like upgraded blender. He actually named
Probably.
one. Hmm.
Yeah,
But I feel like even
there's an
with,
invention.
even with
Yes.
all of that, like it's easy enough to like, after say you do put the water in or the food or whatever, and it does get that, and then afterwards just say a nice prayer, you know, reverse it and put some love into it, and like presto, it's all better, you know.
Yeah. So as we master this body of water, ultimately emotions is our bigger key. We roll with it, but we also, as we've perfected our understandings of self to the level, we're all growing here, we're still always learning, but yet you've got a handle on it, meaning you could be around gossip or drama and you just hold space. You know, you're just like not trying to get all involved, just listening, or not even listen, you know, you're listening, but you're not like just deeply engaging. You're just holding space because you're just meant to hold space. That's you maturing at that emotional level to allow whatever needs to take place. Because sometimes if it's just you and another being who's going into their drama, and again, you have some homework to do on that because it's a reflection of some sort. But if they're going into it and you're not interacting emotionally, you're just compassionate, holding space, then it just comes through your field and comes right back to them and they have to deal with it, you know, or they can deal with it. It's like you're holding the space so they can finally process it. And that happens a lot of times with partnerships, you know, where the partner feels comfortable enough, they feel safe enough that you're actually not going to run away when they have a meltdown, you know, in your presence. And you're like, okay, one more time. Huh?
I'm usually thinking, what the freak is wrong with me as I'm watching that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm working on that still. But you are able to hold space. And that's really sometimes the best way for your own evolution is to hold that space, and you can be able to hold for others more often because you really get it. You're like, wow, they love me that much that they can feel safe enough to let go, and not take it personally, right? One of the 4 agreements, not take it personally. Yeah. There's something else with that. Greetings. So what, balancing the emotions, stabilizing the emotions, and then ultimately also sometimes you're meant to play a role. You've mastered that emotion, but yet you're meant to play a role with the cast of characters or the being in front of you, and actually engage some to help it move, right? To get it from dense pain to some emotion, to some fire for transfiguring, to some airing it out, right? And some wind, and like you open the windows, let me open the door. You know, like wind comes in, you know? And so that also can be in a way, you know, sometimes you're guided. All right, I'm playing this character right now. And you know, you really don't, like I said this last week, you know, you really don't care. You understand holding space, but you're like, all right, I'm going to play this character. What do you mean? And you know, all of a sudden you're like, you know, saying these things to your partner. Let's use that example. But yet it was necessary because it helped them move that energy. And maybe we've touched some commonalities. So that still is, you know, essentially balancing and water bending, learning how to access and work with emotions in the field with others. As we balance and stabilize and understand what I'm talking about, then you start realizing, whoa, I can affect the whole field in waterbend. So when you realize that you're not just in this 6-foot aura, you've embedded yourself into the longitudinal array of the plane of existence. You understand all is one. You understand that this is a tribe you're working with called Quest, questing for love, remembering that we're all love, you know, I got chills on that. You remember like, oh, we're here to do this together. We're here to wake up together. This isn't me on the island anymore. I got to get off the island, out of the cave, and come back out, which is definitely, I mean, I could raise my hand many times, definitely a recent one. Like, I went deep under, "Oh, I'm done." No, you're not done. You're going back out. So when you remember that we're here to do this together, I'm talking about beings, but we're also talking about we're here to be in this whole heaven on earth. We're here to ground. Heaven to me means that etherical longitudinal wave of bliss. I need to ground it down. I need to make sure I'm walking barefoot out in the parks again, hugging those trees this morning, being out there in the field, in the nature, and also grounding it down and being a part of this is all here for us. So that's me embedding in the bigger longitudinal array, the plane of existence. So when I say longitudinal array, so that I'm speaking of two waves, longitudinal wave and a transverse wave. The transverse wave's like this. This is me angry. That's a transverse wave. It's coming out. It's good. I need to process that. But when I can hold space while anger's taking place, that's me spread out in the longitudinal array of all the transverse waves out of every energy center, every micro, mini energy center. I'm literally whole in my field in this Taurus. And I'm so whole that I'm also realizing I'm also in the plane of existence. And I spread out in this huge wave called a longitudinal wave. I'm not only in my soul, but I'm spirit. All of a sudden, I'm dropping into the eagle. All of a sudden, I'm dropping into the snake. I'm dropping into the cloud. I'm literally like looking out. Oh my God, I'm up in this cloud right now. You're able to multi-connect, that you're looking out these eyes, but you're also seeing yourself out of all kinds of other different eyes. So as you spread out into that bigger longitudinal wave, and a tsunami is a good way to look at, big longitudinal array. When you step out in that, you literally perfectly embed through the field, and you can have bigger effect. You can steer tornadoes, you can steer clouds, you can steer tsunamis at a level, but you become more aware that you are quantum entangled with the whole thing. So when you go, this is what happened to me a couple of days ago, before yesterday, maybe it was 2 days we had of storms and winds. Whatever it was, the day before, I'm out at the park and Spirit's like, "We don't want you to walk counterclockwise around that lake today. We want you to walk clockwise and ground." So I walk grounded clockwise, and I brought the pendulum back out since we've been doing the Saints Come Marching In, and Isabel has come back and reminded us. So I'm bringing my pendulum along more often, and I'm spinning it, and we're getting big clearings done for the world. Well, that created a day and a half of massive winds and massive rain. So I know, even though there's no time. So I tell this to my partner, and he's like, "Well, it was already going to rain. It was in the Weather Channel." I'm like, all right, even though there's no time, at a level, this is your projection, your reality. You are the center of your universe. It's your universe, So like, that you going and walking around clockwise around the lake at Fred Howard had something big to do. You went and captured all that water that was underground, stagnant, in the air, in wells, etc., and you're able to move it. And so that will come with not only water bending, air bending, especially when we talk about air bending. And there's two. Yeah. Well, kind of, because they still go out to the ocean, but like we did the day we got the Therify, a group like you all arrived to try it out. And I mean, we created a massive amount of weather, and it's happened several times. When a group of people have come to use the Therify, and you think about why, because they're doing Akashic work, they're finding in the field of their aura and beyond where there's plasma, where there's soul essence that was trapped or held down in density because they didn't understand why they were having certain characteristics about themselves or patterns. And then they figured out and they go lay on the Therify, or even they just went and laid on it, a group of us doing that. We undo a lot of water, aka plasma, in the field, and it will start to move not only in our individual auras, but the whole area. And so when I was the last of that day when we first got this maybe 4 months ago, and I was the last to go on the Therify, and I laid down and I had this like echo of Dan Winters saying, "Go steer your tornado when you're on the Therify. Some of you are shaman." And I was like, my phone starts going off. So I get up and look at it. It was like all down the coast of Florida. There's this all of a sudden, 100 something tornadoes. And I'm like, what? I said, did we just do that? And they said, yes. I'm like, okay. So that night I go to sleep and I wake up like to my higher consciousness echoing, booming to me, get up, go to Honeymoon Island, you steer that tornado. And I was like, okay. So I go, well, I was a little bit too late. I mean, ultimately, my slowed down avatar, down doing it, but in dream time, we did it. Well, the tornado that one of the 100 went through the street that I grew up on, and that I had one of the first healing centers called the Light Center on Clearwater Beach, went up El Dorado, took down some houses right next to the house that we were at, went all the way up Honeymoon Island, where I have a huge altar with all the crystals that were here from last time buried in the sand, took that up where I sit and meditate, and then went all the way up Dunedin Causeway through the gym where my dad's gone for 30 years and finally got me to join there, and took out the building. And so I was like, well, did I do that right?
Were they supposed to be taken out, or were they supposed to be avoided, right?
Right. And so I talked to Dan about it, and he said, basically, Elasa, shaman will, when you're looking at more of like native cultures, that they'll steer their tornadoes through land along a song line, along a grid line or a ley line, where there's things that don't need to be there. And so a lot of times there's like metal buildings put on these places, or just metal specifically speaks about, because the metal can disturb the magnetic line, the ley line, and cause it to like fracture and to make water not be flowing the way it needs to, and make land erode and things like that.
To add to your point, Elisa,
Please go for it.
That happened in my hometown where I'm from, Alexandria, Louisiana. It became Tornado Alley just all of a sudden. It wasn't like that when I was growing up there as a child. But there were a lot of metal buildings that got destructed like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. I got chills when you said that, because I already know what you talk about. And I did a rain dance yesterday too. So, so yeah. And about the weather thing, we had an experience in Mexico like that one time. A group of it was like some tension. The rain came in. As soon as the peace was made, it cleared back out like nothing happened. So I know what you mean. Like, yeah.
So those are great, examples. And like I was saying about the native tribes that, want to have their land cleared, this great spirit in the ether will come and create that field of tornadoes.
Just like with the hurricanes, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to a level. I mean, depending on what level of focus we're at. So when would we want to affect the weather?
During hurricane season.
Hurricane season.
If we're in a
Drought. Seeds, like when you're planting, so one of the best.
I kind of was trying this the day that we were at honeymoon the other day, and I was like, it's windy, it's cold. I was like praying and asking for the wind to stop and the sun to turn up hotter and this and that, and I felt like it didn't work. So is it like I just wasn't powerful enough, or it wasn't meant to be, or we're supposed to leave? Or
I mean, those would be things I would ask, like, am I doing this right? Like, do I need to do something else? But ultimately, I'm glad we brought this pendulums back out, because it will move things very quickly. Like, especially yesterday when it was, I was like, all right, enough already. I just went out and like made sure everything was moving, right? Like, Trevor Hall hiding in a lime tree. It talks about poking a hole in the clouds and letting it all drain out. Like ultimately, you know, we're poking a hole in things and getting things to go ahead and move where they need to move.
I
And
felt like yesterday was like the cleansing from the eclipse though.
totally.
Like all that pent up energy, and then like you could just feel it swirling,
Yes.
and then the rain, and then it was like, oh, okay, now it's done.
Yes. And then the clear sky.
Mhm.
And you, I would suggest our waterbending skills this week, if a rain does come to, or clouds, to play with it. Because as we move into cloud consciousness with the air bending, usually it's mental, you know. So when the group of tribe in a neighborhood are all mentally dealing with something, or you know, United States or something, you know, notice like what's going on mentally. You may not be tapped into what they are, but maybe there's something going on in the news everybody's watching, or, you know, just where is it at in the community? Like what's happening? So there's that bigger view you can look at, but then also personally, like if you can play this week with a storm and see if you could actually get the clouds to move and break and have the sun come back out, you're going to see like your skills with this. Yeah.
Well, I feel, you know, and I thought about this the other day. I was just feeling that, I don't know if y'all happen to notice lately, there is a lot of, what do you call those things in the sky?
The
The chemtrails, yeah.
Chemtrails.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of them. And the day of the eclipse, there was X's, then there was a star made by these, you know, chemtrails and stuff. And I'm thinking, something's going on. Something big is going to happen.
It's geoengineering, yeah.
And then a couple days later, a day later, I read that this is going to be the most active hurricane season. And I'm thinking those SOBs, you know, that they're, you know,
Well, they're dropping metal. So just like the metal buildings and the chemtrails is metal. So again, we can go middle and be like, we can go into source coding and be like, that's all love light. I'm going to use it to the best of my ability.
well, I mean, I know that everything that is happening and is going to happen is meant to happen. You know, and it just is. I mean, it just is. And I mean, did anybody happen to see, oh gosh, what was it? Well, let's go back to Jesus Christ. Okay, and everything that he had to endure, you know, it ended up, there was a purpose for him. He tried to teach and let people know what to be of love and this and that and do, you know, whatever. But it ended up not being that way, but that was the master plan.
That's the role play I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's the master plan. So even if they're doing whatever they're doing up there with the chemtrails, whatever, it's meant to happen. And there's not really much that we can complain about it, you know, and amongst ourselves at the SOBs, whatever. But I really feel that it's a part of the master plan.
Like it's
And
already written.
it's already written. It's already written that, you know, God, or however you want to call it, spirit, is allowing humans to do what they're doing because there's a bigger plan coming. And they're going to cause their own demise for a new world to come. You know, and all these things, just like what Jesus had to go through and stuff, has to take place in order for it all to happen. You know, so yeah, that's just.
And it is because time is a cycle. So it's happened again and again. You can look at all the, you know, sides of ancient buildings and see cell phones and see see computers. We've already done this many times. It's the dropping into time, into these cycles, into these stories, right? These bindings that we drop in and we reawaken and remember, right? And we strengthen and remember who we are, what we are, and what we're capable of, which is everything, because we're eternal love. And so it's like when you drop into these stories, into these cities, into these bindings and history, and you're dropping in, you're dropping in, you're a time traveler, and you're dropping into like, all right, let's see how we're going to do it this time. And sometimes you retain, it would be my hopes that we retain your memory and you take it through transitions, and you're an ascended master kind of, experienced being. And I feel like you all here are ascended masters. For us to be able to see these things, we are.
Just thinking that.
Yeah.
Thinking that that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And
We're taking it through the transition
Yes.
another thing that
together, awake.
Yes.
Or whatever,
Aware.
aware.
Yeah.
thing that I'm choosing to do is I don't care to focus on what's going on the outside in this world. Not that I don't care. I always pray for the whole earth, for all people, and I leave it in God's hands and stuff. But I choose not to focus on any news or anything. I create my own world with my family and my friends, and that's all I want to focus on, because everything else outside,
Too negative.
it's too negative, and I don't want to be involved. I don't want to get involved in it.
And that's where those other souls are on their journey, right? They're still participating, and that's their projected experience. So until they decide to have a new projection. And sometimes you dip in, or it's a resonant match for you that you still go into all sorts of arenas and scenes.
And I too, Isabel, pray, for how the weather reacts and stuff. But I remember years ago when there was a hurricane that was due to come straight to us. And I kept on praying and saying, turn. And again, I apologize to the people where I'm asking the hurricane to turn to,
The people in Louisiana.
They actually turned into like Fort Myers. And this was years ago, and I forgot the name of the hurricane, but I kept on asking it to please change course, don't come to us and stuff. And I apologize to the people, that it was going to affect and stuff. And sure enough, at the last minute, it took a job,
And so all is one, right? So even steering it sometimes would be fun to diffuse it, right? So getting out, a lot of times I've been asked to just go sit outside and actually get in it and feel like it's nothing and diffuse it. But ultimately, like you said, everything's happening the way it needs to happen. This is just you attending this class, learning to possibly to bend, if you'd like to bend, because it's fun. Okay.
Because it's fun and it's necessary.
For where you're going up your channel, yeah.
And then for others that still need it, then we can simply dip in.
Yes.
Which is exactly what she had said.
Yes.
On going with that flow.
Yes.
So we're able to hold, dip, let it flow.
You're not at the beginning.
That's an
or you're
empowering
not,
place
like what
to
you
be.
said,
It
you're not at the
is.
beginning or the end. You're right in the middle to flow.
Yeah.
And it's allowing others to have what they contracted for. That's because that's their journey. We can't take it away.
You don't want to take that away. Yeah. And as they grow, we all grow, right?
When you were talking about when I laughed and you were like, I think I hit something. I seem to find myself in the situations more often than I sign up for, right? Here we go.
Like you did sign up for.
People so attracted to being wanting to be friends with me, and I think then that I began to understand that maybe my role playing at times can kind of help them get where I have already gotten.
Yeah.
I'm here because I'm supposed to kind of be a teacher figure to them because I'm still a forever student. I'm not anywhere, but they're still like right here. So I'm supposed to be in their life to elevate their vibration some, and I just have to do it, because if I don't do it, they're coming right back with another story, right?
And when you hold space, ultimately you're stabilizing your energy centers and they become more like star points. But when you hold space and you're able to hold compassion, for the group of cast of characters in front of you that are at those different levels that you used to be and some other timeline are, you know, if you're looking at it like that, all of a sudden your heart, right, it gets way open, and you begin to also master again, like up the central channel.
I agree. I do find myself though at times just not feeling up to sometimes avoiding the exchange, because it's, it's a different vibration than the one I operate in. So
and that, you know, that happened to me in the past couple of days, and that I just went with, I'm annoyed, you know, and I'm avoiding that, and like, why? And like, and then being annoyed that I had to avoid it. So like went into the emotion, right?
Yeah.
Dug into that emotion. Like, why can't I do it today? Like, what is going on? And really felt into it and then processed it with some emotion, right?
Yeah, I think that some days you just feel like you just want to be a service to yourself and not others. And I think that's okay.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. And that pulling back so that you can service yourself. And that's what I was doing, was like getting annoyed and by myself, like, well, I'm allowed to get annoyed, you know, and and process some deep emotion. I will say that I did realize that day I had this tensor ring, which I highly suggest. If you guys have one of these, they are magic. I forgot how magical they are. I had it around my necklace or my heart center that day. And then I even flipped it around in the back for that day. So it got some big, deep clearing out of my heart space that I needed to dig into. But I wanted just to bring these up because this is holding, it's, you know, it's a tensor field. These 3 chairs have them. But even this small ring that can be used as a bracelet, you can put it around water to structure the water, but it's flowing that infinite, basic longitudinal field of perfected energy infinitely. And so when you're putting over your energy centers, it can go ahead and move anything that needs to get stirred up and get the energy flowing into them. So I'm even going to make one of the inventions is like 7 of these and like put them on a long string, and then people could like put all 7 down. But anyway, so just like, these are super powerful. And so today I remembered that, oh yeah, I could put it on my top knot, you know, put it up at the top of your head at your crown. Just put your hair in a bun. And I was actually thinking of you, Teresa, but then I was like, oh, Teresa, you don't have any hair. But like, you know, putting it there, it feels so good. It feels really good over your heart. I feel good in all of them. Yesterday I was like, oh yeah, put it there and there.
That's why you're like, I need a whole series.
Right. But you know, play with that. Okay.
Can I share?
Yes, please.
Because we're talking about the emotions and both of what you guys said, and the other day too, like, I mean, things been going along pretty great and whatever, but it was Wednesday night and I noticed it was like, you know, like I'm annoyed or whatever, and I could feel the emotions like settling in of whatever it was, like uncomfort and, you know, whatever it was. And but I was so aware, and I'm like, okay, this is here, it's not going away, I can't just wish it away, like it's here for a reason. And it was like in relation with my partner and stuff, and I knew that he was like, well, he was going to be too tired to talk about it, you know, but like you said too, like having that partner that you can trust that's there to like go through it with you. So anyway, we just, you know, went to sleep, but it was still there in the morning, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to talk, because talking helps me like get it out and feel better. And also I was like using the app. I'm like, okay, whatever it is, like I gotta put it in the app. And how many, I used to put the intentions, but lately I've just been doing the automatic without the intentions. And like, how many readings do I need? So I was doing that, and then we did end up talking about it and like working through it. I got through it, and I just felt so much better. So I don't know, I wanted to share that in relation. I don't remember what else I was gonna say about
because you
that.
felt it and it was there, and then you dealt with it, and it it moved you to, being able to take action and communicate, right?
Yeah. And because of this, the work that we're doing and everything, I was so more aware, like, okay, this is a pattern. I felt this, we're going on 4 years soon. I've seen the same pattern, the same feelings come around, and I've reacted a certain way in the past. I don't want to do that anymore. How can I work through this in a new way?
That's huge. Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that.
Did the records give you any insight?
I don't. Well, the way I do it, I just kind of do them, and I'll read it, but I don't like analyze each one.
I'm just curious if it was a pattern that is not just 4 years recent.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Many lives before.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So what's happening when you get charged up emotionally and you quantum entangle and you engage with whatever it is, the pattern, this happens every year for 4 years it's been happening. I was having similar, so again, collectively, we've got a big storm. So it's stirring everybody up, especially those who are embedded in the array. If you're here, you're embedded in the array. If you've ever reached bliss, you're embedded in the array. And maybe you come in and out, but you know what I'm talking about. You can go walk in nature, you're embedded in the array. So you're feeling it, you're feeling the weather, then you can go deeper into it and find what's going on personally and then collectively. Land-wise, you might check your house, your land, the community, is the front entrance of your community needs some clearing? Work with it. If you can visibly see that there's plasma in the air, there's a storm, what are you going to do with that? Work with it. And then what I do is pour it in my bank accounts. It's currency.
Okay.
I do. I take my left hand and my right hand, and I'm pushing it in. And then I watch it come in. I got 7 of them. I'm like, that one's going there and that one's going there. Water is currency. We're going to talk about that one more. I forgot that piece. So when you find that it's visible, you can see it, you're feeling it, and you go ahead and start doing some deep diving, you do some clearing, and you can go to the conception point. Where did it begin? Obviously you've been here a long time, you're an eternal being, but for the things that you're feeling right now, specifically, the pattern, where did this begin? Mine was I was probably mirroring you, and I'm like, oh, my parents, they were never really, able to be around each other, so because I'm always in and out of my house. It's like I'm in and out, gotta go, gotta move this energy. And so, and I really wanted my partner to come with me, and he was like, no. And I'm like, fine. And I got my yard here. It's so beautiful. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you got your yard. It is beautiful. But so I went back, where did this conceive itself? Well, my parents weren't together. They were not together for most of my life. And so I went and, did some deep diving into that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can see. And even though I've worked on this topic many times, a lot of us have been doing this self-help work. We've looked at our early childhood. But for whatever reason, that's the moment I was taken to, that when they stopped hanging out, that was also, again, still coming into my patterning of keeping me from having my partner with me and doing things. And so I went ahead and built it into my, visions and my feeling it. And sure enough, then he's like, hey, you want to go do something? So it's, where are we? If we're getting stimulated, and it was sunny out then, coming back, where are we on our energetic quantum entanglement outward energy center? And if it's feeling off and feeling weird, you could be hitting a pattern. It could just be slightly different, even though you've worked on it half a dozen times. Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of patterns, my situation with Jeanette, right? So I told your mother about this the other day. So I've been dealing, talking to God, and myself, about how I feel about, I need to change and I don't really want to. So anyways, I get a text message out of the clear blue sky.
Literally.
Teresa, thank you for helping us with the dogs. I'm thinking, oh.
It works.
And so rather than texting her back, I call her. And I said, so you're more than welcome. I said, but I said, I've got to be truthful with you. You know, I says, I feel restricted with my time with me. And what do you mean? I said, well, you know, I don't mind watching them. I said, but because she has to be in. So I explained to her. And I says, and I don't like this restriction. I says, can I suggest that you might find somebody else that can like even Evie to alternate weeks
Great for
and
you.
stuff. She goes, well, I don't know if she could do it, but I'll ask her. But it got open.
Yay. Yeah.
And how and why she texted me and said that after all this time is like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, that's the power of this work.
Yeah.
And that's you rising up your scale, your energetic system. Yeah. So as we move, if we feel it, if it's visible, if it's palpable, use it. That is going to lead you into the mastery centers, these higher centers, heart and higher, right? This feeling of this openness of deep presence, being able to speak it and then see it and know it and have it be actualized. You're not getting there fully all the time, more consistently, if you're still going off down here. It'll become more consistent if we deal with what's ever going on in these energy centers, 1, 2, and 3, knees and feet included. Okay, so money. Water is currency. So I wanted to go to the springs today because when we're here, we're sitting on a spring. We are a wellspring. But I love going to the springs because I can manifest a lot of money when I go to the springs. It's pouring out millions of gallons of water, plasma, out from that, those spring holes. So, and it's not just about money, but, this world is revolving around money. So that's one thing. You could have just bliss, like getting tapped into massive bliss, go visit the springs, go visit the ocean, etc. But when we're looking at money specifically with water and currency, you think about the currents of water, right? It's bringing it into what? The banks on the shore.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you start to realize that these elements, that if you start playing with the elements, make your stone grid outside, pull the water to there with your pendulum, or call it, I want the water, main water vein to go ahead and come up to this grid that I just placed outside. It'll kind of do it naturally, but check it. Where does it want to go? Where does it want to go on that nodal point on the earth? Draw that water there. Go ahead and burn up the brush around your house. Get up at 4 a.m. and go walk in the night and notice that you can see just fine, and pick up sticks. I did this for like 2 years, just at 444, then 555 during COVID days. And you gather those brush, you gather those sticks, you make that fire. Next week, we'll make a fire out back. And you burn that energy, transfigure the debris, which is your prayers, which go up in the air to spirit, to the sun, to source, to recycle through your Taurus. So it's going to, as you remember how to work with the land and work with the elements, it already is taken care of. But you start to, again, become more masterful at these skills of bending.
I have my new home has a pond and a fountain, like right outside the living room. So
yeah,
I haven't thought.
It's moving, right? And that's what I'll do too.
It's kind of loud because it's like continuously,
but it's moving, right?
But maybe it's good because it helps dim the belcher noise.
There you go. So when you look,
you mentioned that the other day about being able to hear the belcher traffic. So that fountain, focus on the fountain, and you'll not hear the traffic.
Yeah. And then I was just thinking back to the earth bending, maybe. That, maybe I could like sprinkle some moringa seeds against the fence against belcher, and like
grow some
maybe
trees.
Like because there are a lot of trees, but maybe I could make the brush like thicker so that it dims the noise.
Yeah.
Or something.
Do that and energetically, absolutely. Yeah. But when you look at back at when banks were created, these terms are coming from the water coming up on the banks and then flooding so that it would feed the seeds and create abundance, create the crops. So when you understand, like working with growing making a garden, working your grid at home, your stone circle, making a labyrinth. I'd love for us to make a labyrinth at that first clearing that we did at Hammock Park, realizing that, this is all you're embedded with this huge thing. How do you want that energy, those light particles, to fill out your blueprints, written blueprints, your stone circle, your visions, your words? And it's all, again, it's all already happening, but you become masterful at it. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things, so in regards to banks, there's a food bank on Nebraska that they're about to move across the street to the parking lot in the firehouse.
Wow.
And so just
we must have made that. My dad dropping off food every
I
week.
saw a flyer and it was
Where's
like
it at?
it's on Nebraska. And the flyer said 1119 Illinois. So I'm like, okay. Like
That's us.
just yeah.
They're moving it over here?
Right across the street to the parking lot of the firehouse. So another bank is attracted to our
Yes.
So yeah, there when your father brings the fruit.
That's his manifestation.
yeah.
So last thing I'm going to say is about like there's a 76-degree angle of pyramids that's bringing in perfected into creations of energy, as well as that imploder shower. You can put it on your hose outside or put it on your shower. But just to realize the geometry of our torus, that we're bringing in this light that's been slowing down into these lower frequencies, into these elementals to create this reality. And so let's go ahead and just do a short guided meditation to complete our session today. Chris, will you just push those switches? The other one too. Yeah, thanks. Let's just take some deep breaths in through our nose, and we're going to do a currency of light particles, water particles into our belly. Inhale, fill your belly, make it wide, stretch out. Exhale, pull your energy from your root, your hips, all the way up your channel. So it's in, filling out and widening the belly, getting big, being able to hold currency, being able to hold current, hold water. And then exhale, pull that energy and be able to work it all the way up your central channel on the exhale. Do that a couple breaths. And then take your right hand, place it on your womb space, your left hand on your heart center. And on the next few breaths, that same breathing pattern, feel the energy come into your womb. Exhale as you push the energy out of the womb, up the central channel. You can feel it brush across your left hand, up the heart, and up to the top of the head. And go ahead and smile. And let out a few sighs just to settle into the avatar. This magical creation. And I want you to go ahead and think about your water bending skills, of something you want to master with water bending, whether it's emotions, a situation, feeling safe, secure, abundance, currency. Think of an intention. Good. And then relax your hands wherever they want to be. And from that intention, I want you to go ahead and look at your second energy center. It's already been set, and check your second energy center. You can ask questions within, like, is it balanced? Is it open? Or you could use your visual skills, or any skill that comes online as you ask, is it balanced? Is it open? And if it's balanced and open, awesome. Just keep breathing. If it needs some tweaking, go ahead and ask what you need to know or what you need to see. Trust whatever you hear. Trust whatever you see. Even if you don't get anything yet, it's already being brought forward. And then with your breath, go ahead and give yourself any sort of breathing to bring it to balance, to bring it to openness, and to integrate with a greater understanding of whatever you heard or saw. Just use your breath. It's going to do those requests. Use your exhale out your mouth as you know that the exhale is doing the transfiguration out the mouth, and it's bringing the stability and stabilization to that second energy center. It is opened and balanced. It is so. And then move your awareness up into your heart. Same thing. Check if it's opened and balanced. If it is, awesome. Just keep breathing and smiling. If it needs some tweaking, ask what you need to know or see. Receive that fully, even if it's just going to come to you through time, space. And go ahead and use your same breath. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, just balancing and stabilizing, opening the heart center. And as we complete, go ahead and use your breath to stimulate with the stimulation of me saying the energy centers. It's just going to balance and stabilize as we stabilize the feet, the knees. Smiling to the first energy center like a string of lights, constellation, the second energy center, the third, the fourth, the fifth, illuminating at the third, the sixth at the mind's eye, the seventh at the crown, the eighth at the soul star, the ninth at the higher self, the 10th at the oversoul, the 11th at the monad, and 12th at source. Beam the light that you are. Get so bright in your inner gaze and shine the light that you are into your original intention. Just illuminate it. It's happening. It is so, whatever it was that you wanted to master with water bending. Good. And then as we complete this activation, give thanks to your willingness to participate in this amazing playland. And take your awareness to your heart, opening your eyes from your heart. If you want to place your hands on the thymus, just to stabilize and to initiate opening eyes from heart. It is so, it is so, it is so. Have fun. Enjoy, drink water, bless your water, get grounded, enjoy this magical day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Practice your water bending and tell us about it. We generate some big storm, see what you can do with it. Pour it into your bank accounts and all your friends and neighbors.
And you have class tomorrow, right? Are you still doing
It's, actually, it's a repeat of the Akashic work we did, and no one signed up for that.
Okay.
So our next class
Then I won't come tomorrow.
is, oh, glad I told you.
I was gonna come to just,
You've already done it.
but
Yeah.
it's different every time.
Yeah.
Right.
And we
I know,
just
that's why I was
moved here,
like,
okay, well,
But next Saturday, we're having powerful workshop. If you can come 2 to 5, the 20th. It is Quantum Interstellar Starship and Medbed Aura. It's really powerful.
And will you be repeating that one later? 'Cause I will
Every
be
3
coming
months I'll
down.
repeat stuff.
Okay.
I repeated that first one because we had just kind of got back in gear.
And then are you still planning on the tuning forks the next Saturday?
Yes, and the aura balancing with tuning forks, also super powerful class.
So what was that the one?
Quantum Interstellar, Starship, and Medbed Aura. Learning about how our aura is a starship and a medbed.
Cool.
So I want
Next Saturday.
to be on getting ready, leaving for the cruise that day.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, and
you'll
then
be going out in the water.
Sunday the 21st is Ella teaching astrology. So that
Is she doing that remote now? I thought that was supposed to be in person.
in person, she just arrived. She was here earlier, so she'll be here next Sunday in person, and people who have to do it remote, she's going to do the following Sunday.
And I just want to say regarding astrology that, remember on Wednesday I came in and I said, oh, that Mars Saturn, and you're like, rise above it. But then like I had the emotional thing on Wednesday, and
Yeah.
maybe some other, and then the storm on Thursday. And I feel sometimes the astrology, when it's something big like Mars conjunct Saturn, like that, that brings
After an
stuff
eclipse
up.
and Mercury retrograde. Yeah, it's like just
Yeah, and like I don't want to like put a lot of attachment on it, but just be more of an observer.
It's a key.
It's a key.
It's a
Yeah.
map. Just like the gene keys are a map.
Yeah.
The
I was gonna say
astrology
the
is a
opposite.
map.
The earth view on that is forgiveness, according to the gene keys.
Mhm.
And today's the last day of compassion. You mentioned that
Yeah.
a few times today.
Yeah. And our our astrology map, any of the maps, we're here to digest and know them. But when I ever say, like I told you, pull out of it, I mean that I find if I get the details and the collective's maybe feeling a lot, if I like go, okay, let me pull my energy out of that, I'll just imagine my energy coming back. All of a sudden I feel amazing.
Mhm.
So that's sometimes a technique that I'll do with
Yeah.
the pull out. But ultimately knowing your own map of your astrology
Something,
is huge.
whichever one you use. Yeah.
Yes,
I
any of
agree.
them.
I agree.
Because they're all gateways to be back in the longitudinal ray. Otherwise you're finite and you're focused on one point, which is great. It's part of our growth here.
And I was so glad I could come here, and I had a session planned too, because I knew that once I got